We're talking about the Washington Post and what a shit stain of a newspaper they are, and how they've, the reason why we went to Iraq was because of the Washington Post, and no small part because of them, right? Just so you know. So we talk about fake news. The Washington Post is now doing stories about fake news when the Washington Post is the one who led us into the Iraq war, okay? Just so you know. You know what else the Washington Post did? They ran 16 negative stories on Bernie Sanders in like an 18-hour period. So that's supposed to be the political newspaper of note. They ran 16 negative stories on Bernie Sanders in 16 hours. That's when a guy was trying to run for president. That's when a guy was progressive, who most of the people in the country supported, by the way. The political newspaper of note decided to take a shit on him constantly. Because that's what the establishment newspaper does. They're an establishment newspaper. So they shit on progressives, they smeared Bernie Sanders, and we caught them. And guess what? Nobody loses their job, nobody gets fired. They're not even embarrassed. That's how big of a piece of shit they are at the Washington Post. They're not even embarrassed by that stuff. So there's the 16 negative stories, and every one of them were made to make Bernie look like he was an idiot or a sexist, or he was a racist, or he was an incompetent, or he was an old man who didn't know how things worked. So that's what they do. That's what the establishment press does, right? So they undermine the progressive. They did the same thing in England to Jeremy Corbyn. The press, they just did a big study. We talked about it last week on the show, where the newspaper people are supposed to be the watchdog of the establishment, but then they turn into the guard dogs of these, where they guard, and now they've turned into the attack dogs for the establishment. So instead of being the watchdogs of those criminals, now they're the attack dogs for those criminals. Okay, so why do I bring this up? Amazon, the Washington Post, that $600 million CIA contract. Isn't that something? So that's from December 19th, 2013. By the way, that article no longer at The Nation. Just so you know, I went there, and if someone can find it at The Nation's website, I'd be surprised, because that was from the Internet Wayback Machine. Because now when you go try to find that story, it's not there anymore. I don't know. So why do I bring it up? This is why I bring it up. Critics charge that at a minimum, the Washington Post needs to disclose its CIA link whenever it reports on the agency. Over 15,000 have signed the petition this week, hosted by Roots Action. In a statement released by the Institute for Public Accuracy, media writer author Robert McChesney observes, when the main shareholder in one of the very largest corporations in the world benefits from a massive contract with the CIA on one hand, and that same billionaire owns the Washington Post on the other hand, there are serious motherfucking problems. The Post is unquestionably the political paper of record in the United States, and how it covers governance sets the agenda for the balance of the news media. Citizens need to know about this conflict of interest in the columns of the Post itself. If some official enemy of the United States had a comparable situation, say the owner of the dominant newspaper in Caracas was getting 600 million in secret contracts from the Maduro government, the Post itself would lead the howling chorus, impaling the newspaper and that government for making a mockery of free press. It is time for the Post to take a dose of its own medicine. So why do I bring that up? So if you go look at this Twitter feed, some guy was calling out Dave Weigel. So Dave Weigel wrote this column, or wrote this article in the Post, trying to debunk the fake news, which is ironic that the Washington Post would do that, because they are the biggest purveyor of fake news. Constantly, they don't tell you about their conflicts of interest. When they report on Uber or the tech industry, they don't tell you Jeff Bezos owns $1 billion in tech stock, in Uber stock. They don't tell you that. They're supposed to, but they're unethical pieces of it. That's why they don't. That's what the Washington Post game is. They don't tell you about the real truth you want to know about. They tell you what the establishment wants you to know. So a guy went after Dave Weigel, who wrote this article trying to debunk fake news about Seth Rich. A guy went, hey, he tweeted, if you look at this on my computer, it says, hey, Washington Post made $600 million deal with CIA, and this guy is telling us we should believe him, which is a great tweet by Russ G. Lewis. He called him out. He called out the reporter who works for a Washington Post paper whose owner has a $600 million deal with the CIA. And what did that reporter decide to do? Did he decide to cop to it and say, it doesn't influence me? Or did he decide to go, yeah, we should probably have an editor's note anytime we write about stuff that has to do with anything with the CIA? Yeah, we should probably, if we were ethical and if I had integrity and if I was raised right as a human human being. That's what he would say? No, he didn't. What the fuck did he say? Look what he said. He tried to gaslight that guy. He lied in public. He said, well, I can hardly brush aside the reporting of hangthebankers.com. That's what Dave Weigel did. Instead of admitting it like a fucking gentleman, like a guy who had any kind of integrity or was raised right, maybe he's an orphan, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't have good parents, because was that what happens when you don't know what the fuck your own newspaper's in bed with? So instead of admitting it, like a guy with character, instead of admitting it, what was his knee jerk? His knee jerk was to gaslight the guy who brought it up to him in public. So instead of being a guy with character and integrity, Dave Weigel, the reporter for the Washington Post, decided to gaslight a reader in public about a major conflict of interest with his own goddamn news organization. Instead of admitting it and handling it like a fucking guy with actual integrity or character, what did Dave Weigel do? He fucking lied publicly. He tried to smear, so that's what they do. You see what he did? He tried to smear the source, hangthebankers.com, which to me sounds like a great website.
I'm all for it.
So what did he do? He tried to smear the source. He didn't talk, what a fucking piece of shit. And so that guy went and found another source, because so then when I saw that, I tried to find the source. That's when I found out The Nation magazine took that article down. So then Russ G. Lewis went and found another source. And now let's watch how Dave reacts. He says, here you go, Mr. Professional Reporter that apparently knows nothing about his own newspaper. And he doesn't go, wow, you're right, he goes, it was Bezos, not the Post, now go away. What a fucking total establishment mouthpiece. What a talk about lacking integrity, talk about not having character. I know Dave Weigel personally, and I didn't know he fucking lacked that kind of character.
It's unbelievable to me how flippant and arrogant he is, but in some ways though it isn't, because they've been getting away with this.
Yes.
Who's challenging them?
No one. They're in bed with the CIA and no one gives a shit. And they're writing about WikiLeaks and Syria and Russia and they don't put in those articles. By the way, our owner's in bed to the tune of $600 million with the deep state.
Yeah. Oh, it's just our owner. So let me see if I got this right. Your owner, a billionaire, gets $600 million more than any of us and our families and our kids' are ever going to see combined in their lifetimes.
The whole country of Ireland.
The whole country of Ireland gets $600 million, and he's working for the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. Right?
Yes.
So he then will have zero influence
None.
on his newspaper.
None.
The CIA, which has never overthrown a government, they've never had anybody assassinated, they've never done anything immoral or unethical at all. Bezos will never do that, and this guy should just go away because Dave Weigel's on point. Do I have this right?
Yes.
I just want to make sure.
Yes.
I'm just a dumb nightclub comic
This guy should go away. This guy should go away because why? Dave Weigel's on point.
Yeah, Dave Weigel's on point. Okay, I'm a dumb nightclub comic.
The important takeaway from Dave Weigel is that whoever owns a media enterprise of any kind, it has no bearing, their financial interests have no bearing on what goes on in that media
That's what he's saying, right? Can you give me an example, Malcolm?
So like, for example, Fox News, I'm sure they don't cover stories in a way that's going to benefit Rupert Murdoch. I'm sure they're doing all kinds of exposés about his interests. Or, for example, we never hear from Dave Weigel that like RT is allegedly a propaganda arm of Vladimir Putin. We would never hear that.
You're right.
From Dave Weigel, because Dave Weigel understands that RT, just because it's owned or it's financed by Russia, that doesn't mean they're going to carry water for Vladimir Putin. That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Go away.
Go away.
Go away.
Go away.
It's insane.
It's funny.
And if the NSA owned the Young Turks, they would not influence anything.
Go away. Go away.
Also, there's one other thing is, Jimmy, you say the Washington Post, democracy dies in darkness. You're implying that they think that's a bad thing.
Oh, they think it's good.
They
might be like, hey,
hey everybody.
This is how we're going to kill democracy, or how we have been.
Oh, that's right.
Democracy dies in darkness, so let's keep Snowden in jail.
So that's from last September. This isn't from 20 years ago. They're trying to say democracy dies in darkness, like they're for it. They're for the information free, and then they want to send Edward Snowden to fucking jail right underneath. So that shows you everything you need to know about the Washington Post, does it not? Do you need to know anything else about the Washington Post? Do you need to know anything else? They're in bed with the CIA, they want Edward Snowden in prison, and they put democracy dies in darkness, and they have a guy reporter lying on Twitter in public about their fucking connections to the CIA, their lead political reporter? Do you need to know any fucking thing else about the Washington Post? Because I certainly don't. And I don't take anything they say as fact, because it ain't. Because they are printing fake stories left and fucking right. Glenn Greenwald's catching them at the Intercept. Forbes magazine's catching them. We're catching them here at the Young Turks. The Washington Post is a shit stain of a fucking newspaper. Hey, are you sick and tired of corporate Democrats? So are we. So why not become a member of the Young Turks and help us say no to corporate money? If you become a member, it helps support shows like the Aggressive Progressives who are pissed off at corporate Democrats. Go to tytnetwork.com/join. It's only $10 a month. It helps keep us independent and keep bringing you the truth.